we go around the room and offer the opportunity to the veterans to say anything and everything they want, and if they don't, sometimes I help them. I have notes from the different years that we've been here. I know what some of you have done. I didn't know Mr. Prather until I know him, but I didn't know what his service record was till he came in. But I'll give you a chance to speak if you want. We can start with Mr. Anderson. Pete Anderson was in the Navy. I think that must be the ship that you were on. Do you want to say anything about your service or anything on this Veterans Day?
Well, I spent my 4 years on board the same ship. There was 4 boys in our family, and 3 of us went to service. The youngest one had bad feet that wouldn't take in. The kid went in 51. He turned 17. I went in 52 when I turned 17. My brother Dom, 8 others from my Excelsior friends that run around together. They went to the Marine Corps together, and they served all the way through boot camp. They stationed in Hawaii together, and they've all discharged together. They spent all their time with each other, so they've been there for years.
I don't think I'd ever heard that. Thanks for coming, Pete. Appreciate you. Pete's had children and grandchildren here. So it's just outside town. Sometimes the people that you see on the street, you don't know that they're a veteran or what things they have been through. So.
Hi, Marcia. I'm Pete's daughter. I want to say that Dad saw and did things that he never would have been able to if he hadn't been in the service. And we always like to hear his stories. The kids like to look at his tattoos.
I was never in the service. I wish I had been. I regret that I never was. And all my son's days growing up, I'm interested in history and Civil War in particular, so I told the boys, if you get a chance to go, do it. It doesn't matter what branch, whatever, just if you wear that suit, it's like a fraternity, and no one can take that away from you. So I've introduced my son Miles already. He went right out of high school, didn't want to do anything else, and served for 4 years, and then came on home. So, Miles, would you like to say anything, or you don't have to if you don't want?
I was an airborne ranger in the 82nd Airborne for 4 years. Joined up December '99, left in June of 2000. Did a tour in Afghanistan in 2003, and then in 2004 did a tour in Iraq. Promptly came home, and I don't think that at any point in time before the war started that there wasn't any of us infantry soldiers not wanting to go to war. But after the war started, just like Mr. Schaefer was saying, it's horrible on everybody. Not only the family back home that you're already away from, but also your new family that you're with while you're there. And it's a nice day, whether or not Veterans Day is not just for combat veterans, it's for all veterans, a day to remember each other. That's what we're here for. Thanks for having me.
You do worry and you do shed a lot of tears, and that's part of it, but they come home, and that's a great, great joy. He's kind of formed a club after the fact that are military veterans and such, because you get the feeling like they're a family, and that's the most important people in your life, like you said. It's hard to take that away. The next gentleman back here in the black shirt is in what's called the Ranger Hall of Fame. He, if I'm not wrong, was the most decorated man in Vietnam.
No, not even close.
In the Ranger,
Yeah.
But he's in the Ranger Hall of Fame, which is a big thing. I told Miles about him one time. He goes, "Oh, I'd love to meet him." So. Bill?
Well, I was with the 75th Rangers, and I think if there's something that I would like the students to understand is that there's two. The people who don't want to go to war the most are the soldiers. I mean, we want to be always prepared to go if we have to, if we need to, but we really don't want to and hope we don't have to. The other thing is that when Mr. Schaefer talked about the horrors of war, there's a flip side to that. All of the humanitarian, all giving medicine and food to the civilians. There's lots and lots of things that the armed forces provide for various places if they end up in combat. So it's not all bad. And the purpose and the intent, if we ever have to go, is to try to help somebody. It's not that we're trying to gain something, but it's just trying to help somebody else and help another country, whether it's helping Luxembourg, Belgium, all of those countries. We didn't want to go in there at all, but if we had to go in there because of somebody else coming across and trying to take them over, then we did that to help somebody. So I think it's important for everybody to look at both sides of the coin and how much good the services do. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, they all try to do something good for the population. And there's lots and lots of stories about how they help the civilians. And so it is important to balance what goes on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shippey, for a living, counsels people who have things they think about, we call them issues, after being in a war. So he's a counselor for people with this thing we call PTSD, and it's a big, big job, and there's a lot of business coming his way these days. We've had a lot of people in a lot of tough situations, and a lot of people, as Mr. Schaefer says, sometimes you're sitting there and you think, and you can't come up with any answers to a lot of your questions. So thank you for your service. Mr. Weir, Don Weir, is Barbara's dad. Don, do you want to say something?
I spent 13 months in the Army occupation of Japan. And sometimes people look at other people as the enemy. I spent 13 months in Japan. I like the people. Now, that may sound strange, I guess, but I thought that a lot of the people were wonderful. They were like people who didn't want the war either. And I couldn't dislike them because they were Japanese. I was on Iwo Jima Island in Japan when the Korean War broke out. So I was shipped probably to Korea. And so I spent about 2 months in Korea. I was injured in combat and they sent me home.
He has some hearing loss too because of his experience in war, and some fascinating stories. If you get a chance and you have someone in service, if you get them to talk, and they don't always want to talk about what they did or what they saw, but if they do, you ought to write it down. It's history. Mr. Prather?
There are a lot of those stories that could be told about times in service, but I'm glad you spoke first because what I was doing was fly on C-47s, which towed gliders and also troopers, paratroopers. So that was my share of the contribution. Plus another, I had a year of Army occupation because I got over fairly late after the Battle of the Bulge. Went over on the Ile de France. That time the largest French liner in the world. What was the name of the one that was lost in New York Harbor? Sabotaged. That was the largest one. Anyone remember that? Remember that ship? Yeah, that's what we thought we were going on. Yeah, it caught a fire. And later I think they scuttled it and did some sabotage. Yeah. But anyway, it was an interesting experience. And I'm thankful to my God for bringing me home.
I might just say a few words. Listening to all these fellows' experiences,
my friends and neighbors invited me to join the service in about 1940. So I went to Leavenworth, then I went to Atlantic City to the Air Force recruitment stations, and I went over to Scotland and joined the 8th Air Force. That was a bombing force that was the main bombers for the continent. And then when they got ready for the invasion, they split a bunch of us guys off and formed the 9th Air Force. And I can relate to him as a pilot. You know, C-47s, I was a radio operator.
On the 47?
And we went into to Omaha Beach and the invasion of Cairns. Did you pull any troopers into Cairns? You did not. Would you pull up in Remagen?
No.
You didn't get into Remagen either?
What was the name of the area? A bridge too far.
Oh,
Read that story. Anyone read that story?
that was across the Rhine River, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
Remagen.
I've tried to get
Knocken?
Remagen.
A friend in California suggested I read that book. It was about horrific losses by the Air Force at that point in time. But anyway, I can't find it in large print anymore, and it's out of print.
You know, somebody said the Air Force lost more people than the infantry did.
I didn't say it.
Oh, I heard somebody
I
say
said that.
You said that.
Is that, I may be wrong, but that's what I've been told.
In the battle when we landed at Omaha, we got into St. Lo and St. Clair and all those, we got stalled, and we lost 40 airplanes a day for several days. You know, and you could sit on the ground and watch them go over just like. And I remember in Santa Maria, you could lie on the ground. I got grounded then, and we were on the ground with the 900 signal company. And you could watch, and the front lines are only about 3 or 4 miles ahead, and you see 150 or 200 bombers go over and all drop their bombs at once, you know. Yeah, it's quite a show. Luxembourg, the people of Luxembourg put in a big fight because I went all the way from Omaha Beach to Berlin, and up to Kassel, Germany, and down to Frankfurt. You was in Kassel? Many times. What years were you there?
44 and 5.
Yeah. They really blew that place down.
I was going to ask you where Luxembourg was on the map.
It's between Belgium, Germany, and France.
France, yeah.
It's relatively small, is that correct?
It's 999 square miles.
And you remember the population?
Yes. 550.
That, I imagine is right, because my dictionary says that 3,300 and something like
So you
that.
have no picture.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I was just telling my friends that I expect it's maybe over 500,000 now.
Just there, and most of the people that came in are foreigners that come in are Spain, France. It's right up here.
What river is on the east side of Luxembourg?
The Moselle,
Moselle, that's the one that we had terrible.
good wine.
Yeah. Yeah, good wine. We had a hell of a time.
Just a second. The Moselle comes in from France and goes all the way to half of Luxembourg, then goes in to the vineyards of Germany on both sides,
Then it goes into the wine.
Right.
Goes then to the old service.